Hello, welcome back. It's a new show. It's a new week. Gonky
Hello,
is
River.
pouring his pink drink. We've got a guest, another special guest for season 2, episode 3, Lieutenant Colonel Reverend Mark Withy. Hello, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here with you.
Yeah, it's like pulling somebody from the audience because Mark is always the guy that's like, "Hey, dude, you gonna put this podcast on podcasting, Spotify or something?" So welcome. We're pulling from the audience today.
Well, I really don't watch it live. I listen to it on podcasts. And then I was polling someone this evening. I was like, "Hey, do you watch this thing live?" And it's like, "No, I listen to it on the podcast." So I know I'm not the only one. So shout out to Sean.
There's two of you. There's two.
So you are from 53rd?
I'm from Biloxi. Yes, I'm from the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron, commonly known as the Hurricane Hunters.
World famous.
Yeah, world famous, shameless, something like that. Yes. And I am a navigator on this fighter pilot heavy podcast. So I'm here to represent, pushback. Oh, great!
And the last, and we're going to talk about your career because you are the last navigator. Is that correct?
Yes, I do claim to be the last navigator. Back when I went through the schoolhouse, they were transitioning from navigators to combat systems operators. They kind of line it up with what is now in many cases weapon systems operators. So being a Mark Withy, I was at the last in the alphabet of my class. So I claim to be the last navigator the Air Force ever made.
Okay. That's awesome. You're quite the photographer. Oh wait, that's sorry. That's the
dude, I knew it. How far are we in? 4 minutes in, and here it is.
You have taken all of these photos,
dude. Mark, you have empowered Mover beyond like your imagination.
Like I can this. Mike Tyson,
just keeps going. Like
that's what a Gonky heart sock is, according to Grok. By the way,
how did we go from Mike Tyson to a duck?
That's a
is that what that duck is? Thing?
I don't know. Look, see, I don't bully people.
Limited edition plushies will be available soon.
That's right.
Are you saying that countries aren't people? Is that what it is?
There it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but you do a lot of photography. Is that your camera apparatus behind you, or should I not ask?
No, actually, that's a tripod for a large rangefinder that is just sitting up there. It's like a yes. Now it's actually for a World War II vintage Finnish rangefinder. It's a kind of takes two images and you bring them together with a series of mechanical optical devices, and you can get a highly accurate range at long distance.
Wow. It's what you're seeing here is the difference between a nav and pilots. Like
we have an "I love me" wall behind us, right. And you have history.
And with he's going into detail about a system, it's like.
Yeah.
If I really wanted to nerd out, I would have grabbed my sextant collection and put it up behind me.
Yeah, I love it.
Don't bully our guest.
You guys started it.
I feel that, you guys as fighter pilots, you talk a lot of smack, but ultimately you're just one guy sitting in a cockpit. Whereas, us people that fly heavies, we're in there talking smack nonstop for 10 hours every flight with 5 of our best friends. And it's just a constant thing.
Well, we're not allowed to talk. 2 Joker bingo, lead your own fire. I'll take the fat one. That's all you can say.
That's true.
So you can't do any smack talk until you're on the ground. You can do it in your head.
Or
and
blind.
That's why Gonky's had 20 years of like just saving it up in his noggin there. Wow, already.
And we're off the rails. Cool.
That's perfect.
That's right. Dude, aren't you glad you said yes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if that's as bad as it gets, we're off to a great start.
That's legit. That's people that are appreciative of the.
Yeah, it's just the navigator sex appeal. I think is really what it boils down to.
Let's talk. We're going to get to the hurricane hunter piece because I'm sure everybody wants to know if the next storm is going to hit us. if there's no next storm, right? There's no next storm right now.
Of course there is, dude. There's always the next storm. That and
Gonky. The latest projections from the National Hurricane Center, we do not have anything that looks like it's spinning up in the next few days in the Gulf or Western Atlantic. The ocean temperatures are very warm, so the conditions are very conducive to generation of a storm, but we don't have anything that's currently in that look. Now, if you move to the Pacific, there are a number of areas that are spinning up. Today, we were looking quite carefully at that and potentially expecting the National Hurricane Center to task us with flying those as they potentially would head toward Hawaii. Ultimately, they didn't make that call today. We'll be watching that tomorrow to see what they may come out with. It's not common for storms to hit Hawaii, but it is out there, and it's within our area of responsibility.
So we almost got stood up by a nav today, is what he's trying to say.
Well, hold on now. So
basically,
are they not called typhoons when they go that side of the world?
Yeah, they're typhoons or cyclones. I think it's actually after they cross the international date line, but I'd have to refer to one of the meteorologists to know exactly. The spinny thing over the water, it's dangerous.
How long is that flight? Like, if you had to go to Hawaii today, would it be like, would the storm already have passed? How do you get
no? So these areas of interest, they're maybe like a third of the way from California out to Hawaii area. It's a very large ocean. For us to get out to Hawaii, it's typically hop out to the West Coast, 5 hours en route to say Travis, and then from there another 6 or so hours to get to Hawaii.
So do you have, how many hours do you have right now? 20, 30,000 hours?
No, I'm only about 5,000 right now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Come on, mover.
Yeah, I can't. I'm so fired.
I did see, there was this, much ado because there was this first F-35 pilot to hit 1,000 hours. And I was like, yeah, that's cute.
Yeah. That's a rounding error in your logbook. You're like,
there was. When I was deploying in my TAC days, it wasn't uncommon to get 100 and 120 hours a month. For months on end.
A month. That's crazy. So let's talk about that. What got you into aviation? Like, how did the path take you into flying?
I think that, like many other navigators in my generation, it's a tragic tale of growing up and watching Top Gun and Iron Eagle and saying, cool, I want to do that. And then, that first trip to the eye doctor and they go, wah, 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 you're going to be a nav. Growing up, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, but it just wasn't in the cards with my eyes. And so the next best thing was being a navigator, and it's been a great option. Gets me into the cockpit, gets me around the community, and having a lot of fun. Because my eyes weren't up to it.
So did you go like ROTC, OT? Like, what was your commissioning source, and how did you get that nav slot?
Yeah, so for me, I'd graduated from college, and I'd originally looked into being a pilot and just kind of got told no, and just kind of took that and went from it. And then after college, I'd spent some time with my cousin who was in the Air Force and stationed out at Edwards, and was out there for a bit and got to see it, what the Air Force was like, and also learned that there were other crew positions that were out there, potential options. So then it became a long process, going to a recruiter and getting, that process to active duty, going to then OTS, then nav school at Randolph in San Antonio, then Little Rock for C-130 training, and then to active duty. And I spent first 4 years of my career at Dias, and then spent another 4.5, 5 years at the schoolhouse at Little Rock as an instructor at the H model schoolhouse before coming to the 53rd almost 9 years ago.
So what kind of, like, on the TAC airlift side, because now everything's the J model, right? So there's no more navs. Like, what was your mission set back then?
Mission set was really tactical airlift and airdrop. at that time, the mid 2000s, we split our time between training missions at home, going out there doing airdrop, going and dropping troops, 82nd type of thing, training for that kind of airdrop, forced insertion of troops. And then we'd go to the desert and we'd play Southwest Airlines of Iraq, just bouncing from one stop to another, carrying Army guys packed in the back like sardines. So what we did in the desert wasn't quite the same as what we trained for. We trained for a much more tactical type of mission, doing those airdrops and that sort of thing. But then we'd go to the desert and then haul a lot of passengers and some cargo. Now that was, we would also do aeromedical evacuation missions and some other stuff like that. So that kind of mixed it up. It wasn't all just, hauling people and cargo. Yeah, it was a lot of the hauling stuff from point A to point B, and then you'd go out to Fort Benning or whatever it's called now, and you'd go drop those guys going through the basic airborne course. You'd do 3-4 lifts a day. You just cycle after cycle, go drop a bunch of guys out, land, pick up the next bunch, and just keep dropping. I mean, you'd drop hundreds of Army paratroopers in a day.
Wow!
Like throwing them out the back or landing?
No, throwing them out the back. So like at the basic airborne course, you do a lift, and it's been a few years, but you typically like drop out like 15 a pass. And so you'd have sometimes like 2 or 3 Hercs there, and you'd, make a pass, kick out 15, do a big orbit around. The next plane or two would be making their passes. And there's just this constant stream of airborne troops landing on the DZ. And then they'd cycle in and get, picked up, broken bones patched up, and go off to do whatever the Army does.
Army training, sir.
I went out to the drop zone there at the basic airborne course, and that we were dropping a lot of folks. So the percentage wise, the numbers can't have been that high, but it's always seemed like there was ambulances moving in and off the field with folks that hit trees or had something else happen to them. Probably my most memorable drop out there was we made this pass through, and we pulled around, and it was maybe 5 minutes till the next pass, and all the folks were on the ground, except there's this one parachute that's just hanging out there at about 1,000 feet. So I'm like, all right, we got somebody hit a thermal, make another pass around, and now it's been like 10 minutes, and there's just this chute, and we're not getting real close. That's like, is there still a person hanging under that chute? This is now becoming a real concern. Turned out it was just a very lightweight troop that had caught a thermal, and they drifted well off the drop zone, but it was very concerning. Did somebody, we just, drop someone to their doom. But it was an interesting time, and we got to see a lot of what the Army does with that.
But you didn't do that. So you said in the desert, y'all were landing, right? Were you throwing people out the back for that?
No, I never did any airdrop of personnel in the desert. That's really more for a different mission set than what the military was doing in Iraq and Afghanistan. In the desert, it was picking people up from those regional bases, cycling them in and out of country, and then from just kind of a bus service around Iraq and Afghanistan, getting units from one place to another as they needed to go.
Gonky, did you ever ride on a C-130 in theater? I guess you're on.
I have not had the pleasure of doing that.
Mark, were you? Did you ever go into Balad from Qatar?
Yeah, I mean, maybe 100 times. I don't know, maybe more.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it's probably a stupid question, but I remember it's nighttime, and they're just like, "Hold on to your butts," and it was just like this tactical, like just dump in. Everybody's like, turn off all the lights. We don't want anybody to know. And you're like, holy crap, I'm really going into a war zone here. This sucks. And then you get there and there's a Burger King.
Yeah.
But is it open?
Yeah. It did not taste anything like a Burger King, but it was a Burger King.
I'm glad you said that, because they had Burger Kings and some of those other things. It's like, yeah, the branding is here. Not sure. Is this beef? What is this that's being served?
Yeah. So you're a Coke Zero Dr. Pepper connoisseur. Did you drink Rippets in the desert as well? Because that would be a common.
I did partake of the Rippets on occasion. At that point, I don't know if Coke Zero had hit the market, but they had what was basically an unlimited supply of Diet Coke at the chow hall, and so I'd pack up a cooler every flight. 20, 25 Coke Zeros, and a typical flying day was 12, 16 hours, bouncing around from one point to another.
Whoa.
The air conditioning on the H model was not always up to the task of keeping the plane cool. It wasn't uncommon on the ground for the cockpit temperature to be 110, 120 degrees. So it was a very hot and sweaty experience, and I could plow through 20 Diet Cokes, no problem. Never have to hit the head in the back of the plane.
That's a kidney problem, sir.
Yes.
There's something. That's a dehydration issue. Yeah.
Probably gonna get a disability for that one.
Well, and I was looking at it from the perspective of, okay, this is, Diet Coke, but at least I'm pumping some fluid through my body that can be sweated out. There were some folks that didn't drink so much, and I think that in particularly the women on the aircraft, you're hauling a bunch of Army guys. They don't want to necessarily have to go to the back of the plane and use the rudimentary facilities. So they would in some cases sort of strategically dehydrate. And I just don't think, that maybe the Diet Cokes are not the most healthy thing, but it's giving you some liquid to then sweat out so you don't fall over of heat stroke.
That's true. I mean, that I'm not a doctor, but that sounds the science checks out on that.
Yeah,
so
we'll deal with the cancer later.
Yeah.
It could be that I get some kind of superpower out of it, maybe like a lesser X-Men. I'm waiting for something to show up. Who knows?
Your vision suddenly improves. It's like
there's still time.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. Give me that GX course.
I know a country that's looking for fighter pilots, but later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Well, if Doug Masters can do it, why not me?
Right. So, what's your scariest deployed story in the mighty Herc?
Deployed story in the TAC world was. In a C-130, it wasn't uncommon for us to get shot at, mostly small arms, occasional man pads or RPGs.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
But hands down, the scariest moment was going into Baghdad one evening. We got fired on by a man pad in the threat maneuver. It turned out there was an Army helicopter that was not in the correct quadrant where he was supposed to be. And so as we are threat maneuvering, then we get the TCAS giving us this, response to you're about to run into this Army helicopter. And that is a very concerning sort of thing. So that, that's kind of probably my scariest deployment type story.
Did it kick out? Did y'all kick out? You have countermeasures?
An angel flares?
Yeah. So we dropped flares. It wasn't uncommon to kick out flares. They always seem to do the job. So
who's controlling all that? Is that like a nav job? Like what are your tasks in the cockpit in that airplane?
I'm going back a decade because I haven't really used this even at the schoolhouse. We weren't.
It only has to be 10% true. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I just make something up.
If you get the rifle out and you're shooting at them, that's fine with us too.
Yeah, right.
that would have been great. But now the countermeasure system was back at the nav station, so the nav was responsible for selecting the programs doing that. But and then each of the individual crew positions did have their own pickle switch for that. So the pilots in the H model, I believe, was mounted on the yoke. The nav had this kind of like pistol grip dispenser thing that you'd scan out the window, and then the load masters in the back had something similar, and they'd be scanning out there looking for any potential threats and calling those out and dispensing countermeasures as required.
What was your flight training? So to become a nav, did they bring you down to Randolph, put you in like T-38 or a Tweed or anything, or what was the flight training like?
So things have changed significantly since I went through. At the time when I went through, we got out of OTS, and I went through OTS and then NAV school and then HERC school with several guys. We were all kind of teamed up. We got to San Antonio, and they had at that time this thing called NAV Introduction to Flight Training, something like that. And it was go find a civilian flight school and go get, I want to say it was like 40 hours in a Cessna. So after OTS, I had basically the summer off to go fly Cessnas. And then we classed up for NAV training, and that was about 8 months. Going through that, you start in the T-43, which was a 737-200, I believe.
Oh gosh, that's a
little
chamber.
Little skinny engines. Most of our flights were kind of high level. You'd go out, fly these large patterns over the U.S. I don't know if in the far aim this is still a thing, but at that time there was something you could file for cell nav, and it was basically like you'd have this 30 miles on either side of centerline that you could kind of wander about for us navigator students to bump our way around course, and you'd be doing these fixes and dead reckoning and telling the pilots which way to turn.
And a 7.3.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this 7.3, it had I want to say 16 navigator stations in the back, and so you'd have all us navs back there frantically spinning away with our whiz wheels and trying to figure things out. So yeah, we take turns. Yeah. So I forget, we had something like 8 or 10 flights in that. Then we'd go to a phase where we did low level in a T1, which was for the most part we'd go down to the Big Bend area in Texas, go fly through the canyons at what passed for low level. It was pretty awesome when I was in my 20s. It's the lowest and fastest I'd been in a plane. And then from there, you'd graduate and go to Little Rock and then really learn about low level flying.
When did you guys track select?
At that time, things were a little different. It was, I think it was about 2/3 of the way through. There was a split between the regular NAVs and the electronic warfare officers, and that's where the it split between the people that just couldn't see and the really geeky folks that went off to really understand the beeps and the squeaks and spend a lot of time in a vault learning things that the rest of us were hopefully going to remain ignorant of. And then, in the last few weeks, then you kind of track selected. And at that point, it was something like half the class got C-130s. And then you'd have folks, a couple of guys went buffs. There was like 1 or 2 AWACS, and then that was about it.
Was like the Strike Eagle like its own thing back then?
So yeah, at that point the weapon systems officers were a totally different thing, and they went to I think it was the Navy school at Pensacola for that. So now I think at this point those are all one big school under a joint umbrella at Pensacola.
Gotcha.
I've been out there a couple times for career day, and I should probably know more. But I go out there, I see everyone else give their kind of pitches for what they do in the Air Force, and I present and say, well, you're seeing the kind of really appealing part of that career. What you're not seeing is all the hours in the vault and all the other stuff. Let me show you what things can be like elsewhere. We deploy, on short notice to sandy places like they do. It's just sand on the beach rather than in the desert.
It sounds like a conversation we might have had once.
It's like the cops.
Yeah, we may have actually had this.
We may have had this conversation, man.
Yeah, and kind of pitch it so that people know that go do your tactical type mission for a while, and then when you're looking for something different, the reserves offers a very different lifestyle, just overall. And then the 53rd in particular offers a very unique mission set that can be very fulfilling.
So was the transition to the reserves in part because of the J model? Like, were you looking at the writing on the wall? Like, how did that, the J model's coming out and it got rid of the nav, right? So were you kind of looking at, hey, what are my options next? Or how'd you make that decision?
Oh, that's exactly what it was. I was on active duty at that time. I was an instructor at the schoolhouse, and active duty was entirely going to the J. The schoolhouse stayed on as a reserve and then went to the Guard, but that was really only to feed people into the Guard. So as an active duty navigator, the options were go to something like special ops, or potentially then find a desk job at Scott and ride that out at TACC for another 10 years, which for me was not a particularly appealing option. And the reserves looked like a much more stable type of lifestyle that I could go to, continue flying and have a little more say in my path forward.
Was it pretty competitive to get hired at the world famous Hurricane Hunters?
My case was kind of unique. I would say right now, it kind of is. We've tried and hired up a lot of navigators. I can't really speak directly to the manning, but at that point, I transitioned to the reserves up at Little Rock. But then our reserve unit, their mission changed. The chief navigator up there, he had been with the 53rd before, and he said, "Hey guys, you should all come down here." So I think there were 6 of us that were up at the schoolhouse at Little Rock as instructors that then all came in mass down to the 53rd and rolled in on hot on those jobs.
So you took a full-time position, right? So a lot of people don't know that the reserves have full-time jobs.
Yeah, and that's something, if I'm like explaining it to my parents, I just don't even try and explain the reserve things. All you need to know is that I'm in the Air Force. I have a full-time job, because explaining the idiosyncrasies of the Air Reserve technician or AGR, it's complicated for those of us that have been doing it for a decade at times. So yeah, I've been a full timer, and the 53rd is very unique in that half of our squadron is full timers, as opposed to normal reserve units, which are maybe a quarter full time.
So it's not just, we'll talk about hurricane hunting in a second, but it's not just hurricane hunting, right? You've got another separate, like, you're busy year round.
Yeah, we are the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron, and the Hurricane Hunter mission does get a lot of attention. It's the really dramatic part of what we do. It's the kind of the most picturesque and oftentimes gets the biggest headlines. But we do have a year-round weather reconnaissance mission. In the winter, that's the National Winter Season Operations Plan, and that's looking at winter storms that are impacting the East Coast. So when you have those nor'easters that are going to be potentially dumping a lot of snow on the New England states, we're going to be flying those off the East Coast, dropping weather instruments through that atmospheric block to gather data on how much moisture content there is, so the forecasters can make predictions. On the West Coast, that's atmospheric rivers, which is the integrated water vapor transport in the jet stream that's coming out over the ocean. It's originating down maybe in the area of the Philippines, going up near the Hawaiian Islands, and then to the West Coast. And that's often been compared to like the quantity of water similar to the Mississippi River, but it's, rather than being in a riverbed, it's kind of traveling with the jet stream and spraying up and down the West Coast, and managing that water inflow into the West Coast is very important for managers in that area.
Wow. Did you know all this weather stuff before you became a 53rd navigator?
I actually just made it all up right now. Just as I was going. You had me.
Gonky and I are like,
I'm like, dude, there's a Mississippi River.
All I heard was he controls the weather. That's what I got.
Yeah, we got the laser and the
chemtrails.
Yes, those. It's really hard to get Grok to illustrate chemtrails. I tried that; it just doesn't understand what you're asking for. It's very frustrating. But no, I was not that in-depth familiar with that. And my knowledge of the atmospheric rivers comes from being out there as a mission planner with the Scripps Institute of Oceanography at the University of California, San Diego, and doing a lot of the mission planning and working with those experts out there to understand what we're doing for this.
Do you guys ever carry a meteorologist with you? Like,
yes,
relatively common or
several.
So kind of getting to the basic crew complement of a 53rd mission is we have the two pilots up front steering the bus. Then we have a navigator telling the bus drivers where to go. Then in the back, we have a load master, like any other C-130, but they're also a drop sonde operator, or and they're sending those weather instruments out through a special tube in the bottom of the plane and gathering that data. Then we also have an aerial reconnaissance weather officer, who are Air Force weather officers who've then gone through our in-house training to come and fly and join the fun side of the Air Force and help gather that data, interpret it, do some quality control. In the case of hurricanes, they're helping direct us towards that center of circulation, the lowest pressure point in the center of a hurricane. And they're kind of maybe like a mission director on the flights. So nearly every flight, we do have a meteorologist on board.
So you're flying J models though, right?
Yes.
How does that?
Yes.
So you went from required nav, because is this the only J model that actually has a nav?
No, the AC-130Js, they have navigator weapon systems officers of some sort. The HC and MC-130Js also do. The EC-130J may, but I'm not sure the specifics of that.
So is it like, weather guy to Mark, please send us this direction, and then you're like, Mark to pilot, over. Turn left.
Well, I see what you're saying is, can't the weather officer tell the pilots which way to go? And damn it, I have people skills.
I'm all for bureaucracy.
Dude, Mark,
I'm just trying to figure out.
Mark steps the waypoint and sets the heading bug, and the two biscuit followers up front, they just
they do. They follow the biscuit. So I guess the big difference is the normal J model at the nav desk. It's really just a desk with blank panels. I don't have a lot of experience with MC or HC 130Js, but in the WC 130J, we have a lot of the instrumentation that the pilots see that's back there along with the radar, so that we're in there putting stuff in the box. And then really the big part of the job is looking at the radar to interpret what's going on in front of the aircraft when you can't see out. Now I'm losing my other earpiece.
Who does the walk around?
The pilots do that.
Uh-oh.
It's all right.
As long as it's not me.
Nope, it's me. Hey, look at that. My first technical error on the River and Gonky show.
That's fine. We'll make you a regular. It'll happen all the time.
Correct.
Yeah, 35 minutes in, I feel like this is a long stretch.
For us, it is. Usually it's in the first 6 to 9 minutes. Correct. But we're overdue.
Yeah. So going out to the plane on a flight, the load master's typically going out first. They're going to be booting up the airplane, doing that initial pre-flight check. Then the pilots, when they come out, they're going to do their walk around and then continue on with the boot up and start up of the aircraft. As the navigator, I'm going to be really loading the route and setting things up for the mission so we can have all the computer stuff ready to go.
That's, having somebody set it all up for you, I can kind of see if you had somebody do the walk around and set up the cockpit, and I just showed up and
turn the fans on. You got to turn the fans on.
Yeah.
So turn the fans on. Well, wait. To turn the fans on, is it like a 7.3 where you got to do all the switches, or is it just the Airbus 2 switches?
Maybe part way in between. You got to crank up the APU to get some bleed air going, and then you're
too many steps already.
Yeah.
Hey, do the 53 Weatherbirds have like a standard weather radar, or is it like a hurricane specific, or is it a weather specific, or is it, you guys tune it for? If you can't say, that's cool too.
APG 83 ESA radar.
Right.
One of the great things about our mission is that it is one of the most publicly accessible missions in the Air Force. There's nothing that we're doing that's classified or restricted in any way. The radar on the aircraft is, I want to say, made by Litton, but it's physically identical to the radar in any other Air Force J model. Now, it does have some software tweaks that do give it a bit of an edge. So part of that is as opposed to a regular J model radar that does the auto tilt, we have manual control of the tilt. And that's so we don't have radar tilting itself. We can set the presentation the way we want it as the situation dictates. And then additionally, there's some software tweaks. The way I like to describe it is that normally aircraft radars, they're looking for that return off severe weather, and then they just care about that first wave that's bouncing back. They're not really looking to pick through 20 miles of thunderstorms and see what's beyond that. So we have some software tweaks that are designed to help the radar kind of see further into the muck as we're going to be penetrating it.
Speaking of penetrating, talk about penetrating a hurricane, right, from start to finish. Like, how does that work, and how scary is it? Are you an adrenaline?
Yes. Well, maybe yes on the adrenaline junkie, but I would say that this is not really, where I get it. It does have some intense times, but overall, it's really like anything else. You're going in there as a team. You're working together and looking at it. It's, while we do bounce around a good amount going through the storm, it isn't as crazy as people might think. But kind of going back to the how do you fly through. So I think one of the first things that people often ask is, are you flying over this thing? Are you circling down inside? And we're not. We're flying right through, typically at 10,000 feet. Sometimes on smaller hurricanes, we'll be down at 5,000 feet. But normally on a Cat 3, 4, 5, you're going through at 10,000 feet. Now, that's balancing some factors. The meteorologists, they're looking for lower altitudes to get better data from some of our instruments. But there's obviously some risks flying through this extremely turbulent air. So there has to be kind of a balance. And 10,000 feet is a good altitude for a big hurricane. Now, also, as you're going through, entering into the eye, the pressure's dropping, and we're flying at constant pressure altitude. So on a larger storm, you may start at 10,000 feet on the altimeter, but as you get into the center, you're going to drop a couple thousand feet. And so you'll only be maybe 8,000 feet AGL. So that gives you, a few thousand feet of buffer should you hit some severe turbulence and need to recover the aircraft. But going kind of out to the start of it, our typical pattern that we're flying, we're starting out 105 miles from the center of the storm. We're flying an inner cardinal heading, so coming in 45 degrees off the cardinal and going into the center. The first maybe 80 miles are typically uneventful. You're going to be going through the outer bands of the storm. It's going to be cloudy. You're going to have some precipitation, maybe some lightning, but it's usually not anything significant. It's really when you get that last 30, 40 miles in those inner bands where the winds really ratchet up and you start getting into that extreme precipitation. Then maybe like the last 20 miles, you're going to be really dependent on the radar completely to see what's in front of you. You're going to see the winds increasing until you get to that max wind band that's just right before you break into the eye. That's when you're going to see a lot of really extreme precipitation. It's not uncommon for you to not be able to see anything outside. You can kind of get a little ghostly image of the engines out there, but looking out the windscreen, it's going to be just nothing but water pelting it. At night, it can be pretty spectacular. It's not uncommon to get like some nice St. Elmo's fire effect going on with some discharge off that. That makes things sporty. Sometimes I'm sure you guys flying, you've heard that wonderful squeal that escalates on the radio as you get that charge build up and you go, oh, we're going to get hit by lightning here soon. So sometimes that happens.
So you've gotten hit by lightning a bunch. Is this is like every time? Does it have like discharge, static wicks or something? Like how does it?
Yeah, it has the static discharge wicks like any other aircraft. I don't think that we have any extra. The Hornet doesn't have them.
That's how my flight lead got electrocuted. But go on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for your loss.
No, he didn't. He just had to take a couple chamber rides as his brain rebooted when he landed. It was fine. Made the news.
It's maybe not as common as you might guess to get hit by lightning, but it's also not that uncommon. Typically, it just doesn't have any effect. You see a bright flash and a really loud bang, and you check everything. Okay, radar's still working, and press on in. If not, reboot systems as necessary, and then continue or turn back if you've lost anything critical.
I know it's like 10,000 feet, probably summertime hurricane, but do y'all ever worry about hail?
Yeah. So hail happens. It's we got this really great hail incident last summer.
You guys do hit hail.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. It's like
I'm not laughing about the hail. I'm laughing about it's probably summertime. Go on.
Meaning the temperature is warm. Anyway,
is
sorry.
It hurricane season that you're hunting these hurricanes? Mike Tyson.
Hey,
go on.
Lapse rate still applies in the summer in the tropics. It's going to get cold at some point up in the atmosphere.
Generally at 10,000 feet.
Dude, these storms have hail. Yeah.
I only ask because
let our guests talk, Gonky.
Sorry, go ahead.
Man was going to answer some science questions.
No, I'm curious what Gonky's questions are.
I've never been a hurricane hunter, but I used to fly weather mod, and we would hit hail occasionally in the summer in Texas, but we were generally in the high teens. So that's why, and a hurricane is a significantly larger, more powerful storm than anything I ever flew through. So I was just curious if you guys ever had hail damage the airplane, stuff like that. Because it's quite an event when you fly through a hailstorm. It's something I don't want to do again.
Yeah, so I guess it's not all uncommon to hit hail. It sounds like a million little tiny monkeys just beating on the outside of the plane. But one thing that I guess I should back up and say is that we're flying through a rough air penetration. So we're flying 180 indicated, it trues out maybe a little over 200. So we're not hitting that precipitation at high speed like an airliner would. And the same thing goes for turbulence. I compare it to driving through a parking lot. We're flying through or at like a parking lot speed where you hit that speed bump and you bounce over it and it's okay, as opposed to like an airliner or a fighter that are busting through at 60 miles an hour, hitting that speed bump, and then everything goes flying. So yeah, we do hit hail. I don't think it's, mostly it's rain that we're getting into, and extremely heavy rain. The aircraft is structurally it's a stock C-130. There's not any significant mods. Now it does have external fuel tanks out there, which do help with the arm on the wings. Is you got some of that gas weight out on the wings, but otherwise it's a bone stock C-130. The most typical damage you'll see is the paint on the leading edges gets stripped off from that wind or the rain and hail as it comes through. It'll do a pretty good job of stripping off the leading edges, sometimes in as little as one flight. So our maintainers keep very busy and work very hard keeping those things in good shape, because anytime you have that bare metal, it's a potential corrosion issue. So we go up and fly them, then bring them back. They paint them, get things back perfect, and then we go and fly it again, strip all the paint off.
See, Gonky said he would have guessed the trailing edges, but anyway. That's just the bullying that Gonky likes to do.
I'm not bullying, dude.
Well, we do fly around a lot of what could be perceived as smaller countries. And
Jeez, Louie. Come
I
on,
mean,
man.
Well, you do land in a very small country, an island.
yes, I mean it's. Are you talking Biloxi? I mean, it's more of a peninsula than island.
No, I meant in the Bahamas.
Yeah, so one of our primary forward deployed locations is St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So, yes, it is I don't know, I think it's about 30 miles in length and maybe 10 miles wide. But yes, a smallish island.
So when you're in the storm, because I've watched it on the Weather Channel, because when the storm's coming, it's always directly at New Orleans. It doesn't matter what the initial what it ends up going. It's always that one line that goes straight to New Orleans. So I always watch, and I'm sure there's one that goes to Biloxi too, because they just love to pick on us. But you're doing these little zigzags, right? I mean, you're not just like flying through one side, going out the other. Like you kind of park it and start maneuvering.
Yeah, so what we're flying through is called an alpha pattern, and we're coming in on an intercardinal heading. So let's say we start from the southwest side. We'll be traveling to the northeast up through the center, and then exit out northeast. Then, much like your beloved NASCAR, we only do left turns.
Oh yeah,
we'll then come around and. And then come back in on another intercardinal heading. So we'll say come in through the southwest, exit to the northeast, make a left turn, go out to the northwest corner of the storm, enter, go in, and we'll basically be doing a large X pattern. Each one of those patterns is roughly an hour and 45 minutes. And on a typical flight, we'll do 4 to 5 of those and be in the storm environment for 6 hours.
Wow. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Gonky. I got to process that for a second.
It's great. You're going out there. It's an excellent opportunity to talk smack with your 5 best friends for 6 hours. Well, and you got to count another hour or 2 on either way going to and from the storm.
So every storm penetration you do, are you gathering the same data, or are you going out for something specific? If it's a certain category of storm, you know what I'm saying? Like, are you just mass data collecting for, meteorologists to sort through later?
So to kind of give some broader perspective, there's the 53rd is the only Air Force or DoD weather reconnaissance flying unit of its type. There are also the NOAA hurricane hunters. And the way I describe it is that the NOAA folks, they are flying 2 P3 variants, the WP3D, and their aircraft are much more heavily instrumented, and they're going out there doing a research-oriented mission, and looking at specific aspects of a storm, whereas the 53rd is out there doing round-the-clock operational reconnaissance. We're providing that around-the-clock data feed to the forecasters and to the forecast models so that they can make their runs and have the most up-to-date data so that they can give the most accurate forecasts.
Is that real time? Are you data linked? Like while you're in the storm, are they getting as it's happening, or is there a delay, or is it wait till you get home, or how does that work?
No, one of the important parts is our data is flowing out more or less in real time to those forecast models. When we go out on a mission, we're trying to hit a TOT to get that data so that it's transmitted via satellite link to the National Hurricane Center so that it can be ingested to the forecast models at specific times so that when they run those forecast models, they have that data for a specific run time. So it's linking in real time, and our mission data is also available to the public. There's a number of websites people can go to. You can watch the data stream from the aircraft. You'll see it a lot on X and some of the other platforms that people will be watching as we fly through the storm, looking at the drop zones that are going out of the aircraft and doing their own little interpolation of what they think we're seeing, how strong a particular storm may be, and what may be going on with that.
You said the NOAA guys are out there. Is there a rivalry, and do you fight?
Yeah, there was an instant. It was a lot like an Anchorman. They showed up. I had this trident. I don't even know where I got it.
Yeah.
No, the NOAA guys are great. We have what we do is very similar, and I would say there's a maybe some joking, fun, healthy rivalry, but our missions are kind of unique. So it's not like we're competing for what we do. It's very complimentary, and it's not uncommon to see them in the storm flying at the same time. I've seen them in the eye of a hurricane a bunch of times, and you go, hey, there's the NOAA guys. We have procedures in the National Hurricane Operations Plan on how we deconflict from them. So we're looking at them on the air-to-air TAC end. We're talking to them on the radio, and we have altitude deconfliction. So we don't drop a drop zone through somebody's window or have some other kind of issue.
Have you ever had the windscreen like from the hail, like to the point where it's like, oh crap, this thing's damaged? Because it's the multi-layered glass, right? So has it ever been
lots of glass?
Yeah. Not this week. Yeah, we do have windscreens that do break. Now, what you see is typically it is a multi-layer glass. It's like an inch and a half thick. Those windows are very heavy, and you'll see like the outer pane may get some cracking in it, but it's not as if the window grossly fails and we're exposed to elements. It's we got a crack in the windshield. Depending on where we are in the mission, we're going to make a decision on how we continue. Typically, you're going to head out of the storm and go back. Safety is paramount. We have a pretty good safety record doing what we do, and we don't take unnecessary risks, but we make careful decisions to collect the data that we need to in the best possible manner.
So
now you're
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, you're a reverend. Have you ever married anyone in the hurricane?
Hey, Gonky, if movers met Mrs. Wright, Mr. Wright, whatever, we need to make this happen.
I'll be the witness.
In the eye,
special.
That could be like a Guinness World Record thing.
Dude.
No, I have not married anyone on the plane. I have performed 7 marriages during my Air Force career. Had not done any of them on the plane. But
like a ship's captain, man, you gotta.
Yeah, I'm always down for that. If you've met whoever's right, we can make that happen.
Most marriages don't involve right.
I'll text the boss right now. I'll be like, hey, we need Uber now.
We've got a plan. We've got a plan. Well, hey, let's get to some questions from the audience because they've racked up a bit. Scuttlebutt Lounge for DCS for Disabilities says, thanks for hanging with us, Mover, to raise awareness for Canines for Warriors. Your favorite Hornet, Mac Toby. Gonky? Yeah, that's the Hornet School, right, Gonky?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I did the DCS event not too long ago with Fox 3 servers. It was really cool. John says we need a Gonky Golden Retriever AI generated photo, which I think the reverend here
give him a minute.
loves to troll with AI. Yeah, he's all about that.
I'm pulling up on my phone right now.
Just email it to Mover. It'll find its way up.
Yeah. Corvette World Rob says always a storm mover. Always. Yeah. This is the worst time of year. Crazy Pete C130 FE says, do they still issue knee pads to navigators?
He was the flight engineer, so I'm sure that's
is this a rivalry?
Flight engineers, I really enjoyed flying with them in the Legacy Hercs. You had a guy or a gal that was dedicated to knowing aircraft systems, and particularly when you're flying in austere environments like the desert, having someone whose brain is just full of aircraft systems and is good at troubleshooting is really so great. So I really enjoyed all the flight engineers I flew with.
4 engines help too in those environments.
Yeah, though they still frown upon 3-engine takeoffs. They want them all spinning for takeoff most of the time.
Have you ever been, because I know that was on the Weather Channel once about the engine failure in the hurricane. Have you ever seen that where the amount of water ingestion or hail or something caused some engine problems?
I have not been on a flight where we've had any kind of problems with the engines. Occasionally, when you're going through those inner bands, you will get sufficient water coming through that you get like maybe a little bit of bog down with the engines, but the FADEX do a really great job of making sure the engines keep lit and going. It's really not a significant problem most of the time. Now, having said that, one of the jobs of the navigator is looking at the radar, looking for those particularly hazardous areas. One of those types of things are what called mesocyclones, and think of it like a water spout that's embedded in the eye wall, and you're going to have much more tightly wrapped winds, maybe that are significantly stronger, that could be hazardous structurally to the aircraft, and then may also be sucking up a significant amount of water. And if you hit one of those, that can be an issue, potentially flaming out engines, but we do train to avoid those type of things. I can't think of anyone recently that's, meaning in the last 5 years, that's had an issue where they flamed out in a hurricane. It's just not a common thing. My understanding is that being a turboprop, the propeller does tend to sling some of that moisture away from the intake, maybe cuts down somewhat on the ingestion.
So, like, what happens when, because we're in Biloxi, and knock on wood, but historically, hurricanes have not been too kind to Biloxi. So if one of these tracks is like, hey, it's coming to you, are you operating out of Biloxi or Keesler until the bitter end, or do you hurrivac and then operate out of there and do missions while your family or whoever is left behind? Like, how does that work with the hurricane hunter being in the eye of the storm itself, or in the path?
For I guess 4 years now, I've been responsible for generating the hurrivac plans for our wing. Now, if you do have a storm that's on track for the area, really we're not even going to be trying to take off or land in a tropical storm force wind. You just don't want to deal with a wet runway with crosswinds. It's just an unnecessary risk. So we're going to get the aircraft out of the potential path, forward deployed to some location where we can operate from safely. That is one of maybe the unique hazards of being in the 53rd, is that if there is a storm that's coming to our local area, we are going to be taking the aircraft and operating away from home station. So that's when the family that stays behind is going to have to be able to prepare the home and take appropriate measures to ride it out or evacuate ahead of a storm.
Do you guys ever, so it makes, like, there's been storms even recently where they make landfall and then they do all this maneuvering while they're on land, and they're still, hurricane, tropical storm, stuff like that. Are you just when they're offshore, or are you doing hurricane missions once they make landfall?
We're really, for any of our missions, where you're only out over the water. Once a storm is over land, you have those land-based radars, and the meteorological offices from the National Weather Service are going to be launching weather balloons, getting that data from land. So we're really operating over the water in that data sparse environment, whether that be for a hurricane or for a atmospheric river or a northeast storm.
Gotcha. That's cool. Aaron says, I loved a KAFB. My first flight training was in the Aero Club there in 93 while I was in ECM school. First logbook entries in my first logbook. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
John says, Mark, what's the smallest strip or FOB you guys landed on?
Probably. I mean, for a runway length, probably Keesler Air Force Base. We've got a pretty small runway here. I think just off the top of my head, the runway in St. Croix is 10,500 feet or so. It's a pretty good full-size runway.
How big is the hotel room, by the way?
That's right.
Is it like
how much per diem?
A hot tub?
Really
yeah. What
in St. Croix?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's almost like 50 yards from the beach. It's not all fun and games.
So you could get married on the beach if you didn't get married in the hurricane.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Hey, Gonky, let us know when this needs to happen, and
it'll be news to me, man.
It'll be news to me as well. Cool. Jason, sorry. Back to that question. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, but typically we're going to be going to a field that has a big full size runway.
No, I think this was back in your H3 days. This is back in your
TAC days.
Airlift. Some of these are chronological from like the beginning. So
okay. I forget the exact length of it. There was a place called Manda Bay in Kenya that we would go into, and I want to say that was like a 2,500 foot strip down on the coast of the Indian Ocean in Kenya, and that was actually a pretty entertaining time. As we were flying out of Nairobi, we flew down. We're flying low level, hunting for giraffes as we're going into this little airstrip, and we land at this place. And when we went in, they said, make some passes over the runway first. It's not uncommon for there to be lions out there sunning themselves on the runway. And it's like, yeah, we don't want to hit a lion. That would be a bad day. So we come in and land, and we're hanging out there for a little bit while they offload the cargo. And here comes this Kenyan military helicopter. And there we had all the appropriate diplomatic clearances, but they saw this low flying aircraft on their radar, and they came to check it out. And there they come over looking for us. 2,500 feet is a pretty short runway, but when you've got a lightly loaded Herc, it's not a terrific challenge to get out of there.
Did you ever do have you ever done JATO takeoff?
No,
the afterburners.
I mean, the Herc had, it was part of the initial design.
Yeah, so the only folks that have done that in recent decades were obviously the Navy with the Fat Albert doing that at air shows, and then the LC-130s that they go to Antarctica. And I don't think that those have been used in several years. I think they sort of expended the supply of those JATO bottles, and I think that's for the most part gone away. The legacy Hercs that are still in the fleet have been upgraded with these new 8-bladed props that offer power and efficiency similar to the J. So I really don't even know if they need those anymore to take off from the ice.
You always need rockets.
Dude. Yeah. Did you ever fly with like the high speed, low drag guys in the back? Like I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you types.
Yeah, there was times when we would haul those guys around. For the most part, as a navigator, you're up there on the flight deck and, going from point A to point B. I would say that probably the craziest stuff in my career has been things that were less focused on special operations and just kind of unique missions going into oddball places. And then you find yourself in these evolving, interesting situations.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's not go to jail. Jason says, I was in Al Asad 03, had a sinus infection during a combat dump on the Herc, thought my head was exploding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I'll do it.
As an airliner, the C-130 is probably the least comfortable choice. Flying with a sinus infection on a Herc is a miserable experience. You don't really want to do it on any plane, but that can be very, very miserable.
So does the Hurricane Hunter, is it still the same web seats in the back, or did you guys put like some Barca loungers, or what do you got back there?
Yeah, so they do have their normal red seats. The weather officer
chair.
I actually did buy this large massage chair at the NAF sale on base, and I would like to put that in the back of the plane for like these long trips.
Hold
but-
on. Let me put the banner up.
For legal reasons, this is a joke.
Yeah, don't
But
get us.
we just can't find anything in the AFI that says, "Hey, the Navigator gets to put a large recliner."
Massage.
in the
If you
back
put
of
a
the plane.
massage chair in there, Gonky's going. Gonky will apply. He'll do a whole drill in a massage
Dude, I'll just
chair.
sit on the motorcycle y'all carry around.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm sorry. I like motorcycles. Again,
soon.
another joke.
Too soon, Gonky. We weren't going to go there.
You're saying too soon to the person that snuck a motorcycle into the wing commander's office?
That's true.
You've also, do you have oh man, I don't have a picture of Gonky's desk with his chair. His potty chair.
The toilet chair.
Yeah, his potty
love
chair. AMT says C-130 NAS. Someone who has 2 pilots, I guess, carry them from bar to bar. Justin said, yeah. Justin says, doing a combat jump tomorrow night at this time from a C-130. Did you ever participate in any paratrooper operations during your time? Pray for your safety.
My experience was really for training with the Army stateside, so going out to Bragg, Benning, or whatever they're called now, and doing those drops with the Army. It's peacetime training operations. Don't have a count on how many Army jumpers I've dropped, but it's probably a few thousand in my days doing that.
All right. Good luck. Oh, am I doing the same one over and over? I just skipped it. Kate says Mark sounds like an endlessly exciting mission. I don't think Mark is the exciting mission. I think what Mark is saying sounds like, I mean, he could. I don't know.
He could be.
I think the intent of that was to say that the hurricane hunting is an endlessly exciting mission.
Yes.
Well, it is a very exciting mission, but I also like to bring my own particular brand of flair to that to keep everyone entertained. Like putting that toilet chair in Gonky's office. He's by no means the first person to have that smuggled into their office.
I like it.
Nathan says, "Hey, this is Alec. What's up, Alec? I want to chase at RMS besides fly fighters. What about tornadoes? Have you been close to them and got data? Tornadoes aren't in any fleets anymore, are they?
I think he's talking about the tornado, the storm chasers.
I'm thinking of
the weather phenomena.
I'm thinking our last week. See, last week
the RAF tornadoes.
Yeah.
Like Twister. Remember Twister?
Do you ever chase the Twisters?
I have not. I see that there are a large contingent of people who are quite enthusiastic in driving across the barren wastelands of the Plain States, trying to get hail damage to their cars. However, I have not partaken in that hobby. It looks like, one of those things that a lot of people can get enthusiastic about. Go out there, chase these tornadoes in their own vehicles and take pictures of them. I have not ever tried it. From a hurricane hunter's perspective, we want to avoid tornadoes, those mesocyclone type of things that are embedded in the hurricanes. That's just very hazardous.
Plus, man, tornadoes are significantly smaller, right?
Here we go.
Not to pick on a tornado.
Now we're going to make fun of the small weather systems.
You guys are like, now we're through it, right? Okay, like
not a C-130.
Come back.
Not in a C-130, Gonky. 180 knots. You heard the man.
But how? Yeah. I mean, a tornado's what? I don't know, a mile wide. I don't know.
Yeah. So if you go looking on YouTube, there was a guy a year or two ago that was in a sailplane orbiting around this like dust devil minor tornado. And it's like, good God, that guy looks like he has a death wish.
Right, but like a hurricane is like 100 could be.
Yeah, from a scale perspective, yes. The hurricane is going to be 150 miles across. Even the inner core with the inner bands is 40, 50 miles across. So we are traveling through very strong winds. It's not uncommon to see 160 knot winds as we're flying through. However, they're wrapped around an eye that's 10 to 30 miles across. We're not going into a tornado where you've got those same type of wind speeds that are maybe wrapped around something dozens of yards across. That would be much more hazardous.
Wow. Yeah.
Thanks, Alec.
Hail is not a concern when hurricane hunting, Mike Tyson. From Ghetto Street
Everyone
Live.
has a plan till they get hail in the face.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I don't
man.
know, James says. So in hurricane hunting, what does your risk briefing go like? Plus, is there an emergency checklist while in the hurricane? Also, if not USA, it's a tiny country. Yeah. Is there even a briefing? Or you guys just get in and go and you'll figure it out when you get there?
So a typical briefing is the weather officer is going to be calling the National Hurricane Center, getting an update on the location of the storm, what the intensity is, any kind of factors that they might think we need to know about, and then we're going to plan our way in and then use the radar to look for any risk factors. We will have times. For instance, this last year, I want to say it was during Hurricane Lee, where the NOAA aircraft was also operating. They had made a pass through and they had run into some severe turbulence. So they called us. We were about 30 minutes out from the eye, let us know that they had run into some extremely severe turbulence. So in that pass, we elected to not penetrate through the eye wall. We kind of passed around the core of the storm, took the best look we had. Then an hour and a half later, the storm had evolved and we were able to go through safely. Emergency checklist. Yeah, there's, if you lose any particular system, we do have procedures that we practice for how we can safely extricate ourselves from the storm. But
Row.
It's not me, right?
It's not you. It's not... Hold on. Yep, it's not
here.
me.
I
There
moved
we
fast.
go.
I
We're
moved
back.
past. We're back. Welcome back.
We're back.
Probably the closest thing I've had to an emergency situation was as we were going through the inner eye wall. The radar went out. So then it was do the immediate action, which is turn it off, turn it back on, see if it fixes it. In that case, it did. And press on. There have been times where crews have lost their radar, and then they have to, look for, what was the weakest area of the storm as they were on their last pass through or their last picture of the storm, and fly out through that weakest area. I guess one of the things I'll hit on is maybe the cardinal rule of flying through hurricanes is you do not try and climb your way out of the storm. The ceiling for flying through these is about 15,000 feet. You get above that, even in the tropics, Gonky, you have a lapse rate and you'll get into icing that will freeze the plane up into a popsicle. So you don't go up high to get out. You fly through and just look for those weaker areas to extricate yourself.
Yeah, because I've flown over them in an airliner, and it's like, oh man, the max tops aren't those 50,000 foot boomers. It's pretty low usually, right?
And it depends on how big the storm is. NOAA, in addition to their WP3s, they have a G4 that they fly, and they will overfly up to, I believe, Cat 2, and then occasionally when we have like storms off the coast of Miami, you'll see airline traffic on the smaller storms. They'll overfly. But then once you get, big Cat 3, 4, 5, nobody's going to be overflying that anymore.
Do you guys yo-yo ops? Like, is it one C-130 out there and then you high five and the other one, or is it like scheduled missions? Like how many C-130, how many hurricane hunters for a given storm? Like, are you trying to keep regular updates? So you have one stay as long as they can and then bingo out, the other one shows up, or is it?
Okay. So the frequency of missions depends on the proximity to land. If a storm's out over the open ocean, well away from land, we're going to be doing what's called 12-hour fixed pacing. And in this case, like fixing the center of circulation. So aircraft will go out and make an alpha pattern through that. They'll be crossing through the eye twice. That's going to be sampling all 4 quadrants of the storm. Then coming back, then 12 hours later, another aircraft will be hitting it. Then as it's getting in closer to land, you'll move to a 6-hour fixed spacing. And that typically looks like an airplane goes out. They're hitting the first fixed time. Then they're going to continue flying through the storm for 6 hours to hit that second fixed time and then return to base. Then 6 hours later, another aircraft will be out there in it. As it's in immediate proximity to making landfall, then we'll move to a 3-hour fixed spacing. So you'll still only have a 6 hours in the storm, but then it'll only be a 3-hour gap until the next aircraft is moving into the storm.
Wow.
Do you have, so you kind of mentioned it, never try to climb your way out the storm. So like every brief, do you guys have like a top 10 rules to live by, or like training rules, or, I mean, it's a real mission, but like, do you have anything like that, you know, that, I don't know, rules to live by, I guess?
Yeah, the aircraft commander is going to go through a briefing guide, and we're going to do an EP of the day. The weather officer is going to talk about what their kind of concerns are for a particular storm. And it's probably not that, although the contents of the brief will be significantly different than maybe a fighter brief or formation brief. Yeah, we're going to be going through a briefing guide and hitting the most relevant points for every mission.
Cool.
James also says, kind of like there's paid flights to space. Do you think Southwest Airlines will offer flying to a hurricane flight? Seems like a ZMA deconflicting thing.
You know, there have been one of the unique aspects of the 53rd is that we take a lot of media on board, and it's on a major storm that's going to be impacting the continental United States. It's very common to have multiple media outlets on board, and there's a lot of interest from those people, like the tornado storm chasers, of people that want to go out. And there have been some significant sums offered to get people on the plane. Unfortunately, the answer is no. It's really only the Air Force regulations only allow for certain media organizations, but there is a lot of interest. You know, if it were, you could probably put together something with a commercial C-130 and get at least a few people to pay good money to fly through.
Here we go. Instead of a fighter, let's buy a C-130. Mark, you can be our nav so we don't die, and we'll just sell rides.
There's your Mrs. Mover right there. Give me one of the rich ones that wants to pay to ride a C-130 through the hurricane. That's
one of the rich ones.
Yeah, one of the rich ones that wants to pay
male or female, it doesn't matter. So I mean,
I just need somebody to sponsor my race car, dude. Whatever.
And dude, Mark could marry you, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. We get them on, like, oh hey, here's $1 million. Here's your new husband.
Yes, I'm proposed right now.
Yeah.
Weather enthusiast, sugar mama for mover.
It just needs to be sugar mama. It doesn't even need to be a NASCAR enthusiast.
Okay.
I'll decide where the money is spent. It's just we're off the rails. Renee says 6 hours, risk of spatial D for pilots. Autopilot, probably, huh? How much autopilot is flowing?
Going through we're going to put the plane on autopilot. It's really when you get into the heavier inner bands where the autopilot can't necessarily keep up and the pilots really earn their money. When you're really in the thick of it, there's going to be one pilot that's working the yoke, keeping the attitude and the direction of the plane good, with the other pilot working the throttles, making sure the airspeed is staying good. You don't want to get too fast, but you also obviously don't want to get too slow. But the big thing is keeping the attitude of the aircraft so it's flyable. There will be some variation in altitude as you're bouncing around. So you want to keep it at a good attitude so that you can keep flight going and not get in a bad situation.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And then Kangi.
Thanks.
I don't speak Australian. Good day, guys. Yourselves and Iron Mike are Bonzer. Applying to RAF pilot, and my heart is rotated 20 degrees. Doctor says it's okay, and got a loo for ATC. AvMed grounded me. Any advice, experiences clearing AvMed? Make them tell you no.
Yeah, hop on the Make Them Tell You No website and post the question.
That's
probably the best. Right?
I don't think you can unrotate a heart, so I would just keep pressing.
Maybe there's a waiver.
Yeah, until somebody tells you no.
Yeah.
And then keep going after that. Get a waiver.
Yeah.
Short Timer just gives Gonky tips for his.
Thanks, Short.
Kanji says bullying tornadoes now. I respect the commitment. IDK James says it's the emergency checklist. And then Kevin says, what's the frequency of backseaters throwing up?
People that have air sickness problems don't typically last very long in this unit. It's, you see the media folks, they'll be upchucking a fair amount. But
you guys hand out the hey, here's your bag.
I'm sure that the Loadmaster does. I don't know. I haven't ever been airsick, so
12-hour flight. That's a lot of puke.
Yeah, I hear that people do get sick. I just haven't seen a lot of it. I think they just kind of go cower in the back.
Dude.
Okay. Well, I didn't know these things, and now I do. Aaron says, I bet you never got lost in that Sky Chicken flying those 40 hours.
Oh, he's talking about initial navigator.
I would like to point out that they said you didn't have the vision to fly an airplane, and then they told you to go fly an airplane.
Yeah, that's pretty much the case.
Like, really.
Makes perfect sense now, actually.
Yeah. IDK James says, I'm not rich, but I don't know, probably pay $100,000 to teabag a hurricane. That's such a Marine thing to.
That is such a
Marine thing to say and do.
Yeah.
Anyway,
if you want to take the low budget version, just get a motorcycle and go through a car wash and just plug $50 and just sit in the car wash for an hour. Maybe flip the visor up now and then for fun.
Do you guys ever ride around with the door open in the back just so you can feel the breeze while you're in the hurricane?
No, we do not open the ramp and door in the hurricane. One of our mission sets is also to drop buoys into the ocean. So yes, we'll open the ramp and door, kick buoys out of the back of the aircraft, and that's quite a bit of fun. You attach yourself in a harness with a 5,000-pound strap, and you can walk right up to the edge and look at the ocean flying beneath you.
Nope.
Nope. It's man, you just have no sense of adventure. So
no, I do. It's self-preservation that I also have.
If you walk out the center of the ramp, the wind isn't bad. It's when you're standing on the edges of it and it comes in from the sides, and it's 130 knot wind, and it's just trying to rip your feet out from underneath you. And you can't fall out because you've got this 5,000-pound strap holding you in, but it's still trying to rip your feet out from you. You got to really triple lace your boots because that wind will untie your boots, and you don't want them falling off in the ocean. That'd be just embarrassing. It really blows. Probably one of the more miserable experiences was dropping buoys up in the Gulf of Alaska in the winter a few years ago. We had this wind coming in, and it's like minus 20 degrees outside, and this wind is just whipping in and just freezing. So we would open the door just for a minimal amount of time, kick the buoys out, and then shut it back up.
Awesome. Gonky, on to our topics. And our first topic,
yes,
I think,
sir.
Mark, you're pretty qualified for this because I'm curious. Do you guys ever do alert launches like the C-17 guys? Because this is the first time I've seen it, and I'd like to see your reaction. Have you seen this video, sir?
Yes, I've seen that.
Okay, well, we're going to watch it all together, and I would like your commentary as we go.
Real time?
Yeah, dude, just send it.
They're inbound, go!
Who is inbound?
Who is inbound?
Yeah, the fighters have retrograded, and it's just you guys. She's losing more ground as they get. Here we go. All right, what are we seeing here? We're seeing them remove before flight stuff.
Yeah.
The camera guy this is like the Olympics where the camera guy is faster than the runners. The pilots are just standing around. That's realistic. They're waiting. See, this is what I'm talking about, Mark. If I could have somebody do my pre-flight and I just stand around and watch them.
An airplane butler, that's what you want.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
I want
butler.
like, those yacht clubs where they just pull it around and it's all gassed up and you just hop in and go. That's what I want. So I have a question because I'm not used to the AMC world. I'm sorry for pausing it, but I have to. In the fighter community, Gonky, back me up.
Yes, sir.
We do this thing called a hot cock. And the aircraft is ready to, if you're in an alert scramble situation, the aircraft is already ready. None of this stuff exists except for maybe what the crew chief has to pull off. But why are they doing all this?
So I have not sat a one of these type of alert missions in a number of years. My primary experience with something like this was sitting for aeromedical type missions in the desert, and I think that was an alpha alert is what it was called. And so in that case, that was mostly when I was at IUD'd, and we would be we'd basically for 4 hours you'd have, I think it was a pager, and you just stick together as a crew. And if you got the word, the crew would haul to the plane, and you had 1 hour from alert time to get the airplane airborne with an aeromedical team on board.
I don't think this is an hour. I think this is 5 minutes, but go on.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
So now, and this was also, this was getting from wherever you were on base, which IED wasn't terribly huge, but, getting to the plane and then getting the aeromeds on board and then taking off. Now, the actual getting things cranked up, if you're starting 100 yards from the plane with a run, it would be considerably less than that hour.
You have to build in the recovery time from the run.
Yeah. Oh, obviously.
Well, it depends on which crew member you were, but yes.
And I think that's why you saw the pilots taking their smoke break or whatever it is while the loadmasters pulled all the plugs and pins. So back when I was deployed, the fastest that I'd ever seen it was our crew was alerted on aeromedical evac mission, and we were all just wrapping things up at the chow hall. We got the call and we got to the plane and we're wheels up in 17 minutes, which in a H model Herc, wow, where you're getting things cranked up and going, is pretty quick. Had we been 100 yards from the plane and not at the chow hall when that happened, we could do it even faster. In this case, it looks like they're kind of doing this like kind of Olympic type event where they're maybe trying to make a video looking at, demonstrating how quickly they can get things airborne. I think that, if you could take any platform and set that kind of thing up and have a pretty quick launch if necessary.
I'm a little surprised you say 17 minutes because I would imagine the aeromedical squadron would be like herding cats, and that getting them all on the airplane at the same time,
they're closed
and
for
not
training.
arguing, like 2 to 3 hours of arguing and trying to, we got to go find this one. Like, it seems like it might take a little bit longer.
I'm going to plead the fifth on any further comments.
There goes Mover bullying the medical.
Yes.
I'm just saying, not specific to anyone. I'm just saying it seems like it might be herding cats.
Yeah. So for those kind of medevac missions, the aeromeds will have everything set up in the back of the aircraft, and it really is just get everybody to the aircraft. They get on board, and we're just getting cranked and airborne.
Yeah, you got to convince them to get on the airplane. That's a feat.
Mover, the Decepticons are coming. You better let these guys get going. Come on.
I'm sorry.
This guy here has the.
He's pulling chocks.
Yeah, but I
early.
mean, these aren't little Hornet chocks, dude, or T-38 chocks.
Yeah,
Look at
no,
these
dude. He
things.
had to use one chalk to get the other chalk out of there.
Yes. Look at this.
Dude, that's a.
Yeah.
This man is the man that's in shape for this whole thing.
Save this video for your VA claim, dude. I mean, he's carrying they're like trees.
And the pilots are still standing around. They're
I
not
like
even
the
in the
fact-
cockpit yet.
I like the fact in the heavy world you take your chocks with you.
You take your chalks with you in the
No,
fighter
we
world.
never did. No,
I did cross country.
No, I never did.
Yeah, you never went cross country at 204?
I did. I never took chocks.
Yeah, in the front thing, they would put chalks up there. I'm telling you.
Okay. News to me.
Oh, look, door closed.
Yep. I think here though is where the video they started cutting and splicing from different.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're not at the 2-minute point at this point.
No.
That's a sprint just getting from one end to the other.
Yeah. I mean, all joking aside, that thing does look pretty cool. C-17.
It's a pretty sweet aircraft. I would be curious to see what their, if you had an unedited video, what this timeline is actually like. But
Yes.
they obviously are moving with a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
What was the purpose?
Make a good video for public affairs.
Dude, inbound mover. What more do you
What
need?
is inbound? Well, okay, if something is inbound, them getting airborne is not going to fix their problem. They're still
Unknown.
targets. Like
Unknown.
they have no defensive capability or offensive capabilities. So
Maybe
is
they have
this
a high value asset that they're evacuating.
it was empty. You didn't see the back. There's nothing back there. There's
It's
no motorcycle
probably,
back there.
maybe they're going to Ramstein and they have to get, off the deck so they make it to Ramstein in time to pick up, happy hour or something.
See, you need to not let the airline see this because they'll enact this. This will be like, oh, your super short call reserve, where you got to run,
Yeah, no, that would be workers' comp.
and your
shortly
60-year-old captain strokes out on the way.
after. That's right, dude. Workers like, well, now we need another captain. Yeah, like they don't look like they're not taxiing too quickly here. This
is as fast as it goes. We do all that running just to taxi no faster than a man can trot. One knot.
Right.
So I've no experience taxiing fighters, but with the larger aircraft, well, you guys fly the airliners, but it probably is moving at a decent clip.
Correct.
But you also don't want to skid that nose wheel trying to Tokyo drift that C-17.
I did that. So I taxied too slow when I was in the sim because you have to sit in the captain seat because there's two FOs, and then they're like, "Hey, you need to taxi faster." So I was like, "Okay." Because that's exactly what happens. This does not look like the same airbase, sir.
That's what I'm saying. They cut and splice.
Now they're just
Nope.
showing pictures of C-17s. This is North Korean propaganda.
Correct.
A lot of flaps, though.
I still want to know what they were
What would
scrambling
you say
for.
you do here? Oh, what did we learn?
I'm glad I didn't fly. What did you learn, Mover?
Running sucks.
Yeah. That was an awfully. They're much farther from the airplane than I initially thought.
Yeah, this is the Air Force. There should be the big box truck.
Where's the van?
Drive you up there.
Yeah. I mean, Mark, have you ever had to run to an airplane? I mean, it's normally you get in the crew van and you go, right? They got the candies there when you first get in.
Yeah,
Water
we
bottles,
usually
right?
pull up to the plane in a van. Please notice that was Pittsburgh doing that, not Biloxi.
That's
as
true.
we would, this week we would be drowned in sweat from the 120-degree
Yes.
heat index out there.
Pass out before you even get to the airplane.
One thing I will say that's nice about the newer aircraft in the Air Force inventory, like the C-17 and the J model, is that You get the air conditioning up and running, so you can keep those avionics cool. The older C-130s didn't have such a need for that, and so you'd get into the cockpit and be 120 degrees and just cooking for a half hour, 45 minutes, getting things up and going, fly.
Dude, I was on an airliner 737 the other day, and that's exactly how it was. They wouldn't run the APU, and I'm like, it's New
Maybe
Orleans.
it's broken.
It's New Orleans.
Yeah.
Well, no, because New Orleans doesn't have you can't start it if the APU. Like, how are you going to start it? You'd have to do the one side and the other cross bleed start. I don't think they would allow that at an outstation. I don't know.
Don't airliners typically have a air conditioning hose that comes in and pumps?
Yeah, it's completely inadequate in the summertime. It doesn't work very well. It is a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah.
But then the guys are like, well, I'm saving the company money. And then they'll leave it hooked up until the last second.
Yeah. It doesn't work well.
Anyway, back to the.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You got something.
Oh, I was going to say this last Friday, we had a group coming in. We were doing a tour of the plane, and we had a air conditioning card out there, and it did make the plane much more viable for doing a tour than sitting in the Biloxi sun.
Very Air Force.
I mean, it helps for sure, but it's nothing like it's not anywhere near as good as the engines or the APU running the AC.
APU for sure. APU with the engines, perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. Mark Bill says, I love how Mark looks like Bill Burr with hair.
All right. Never got that one before, but okay.
Elias probably, Kaser says, Swithy, sir, cool to see you on the pod. Keep up the A1 content, Cornelius and Gonky.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Last week, I think you said your name was Cornelius.
Cornwallis.
Oh, that's what it was.
Cornwallis. Yeah. CW Cornwallis. Ringlet says, this is the greatest and hottest guest ever. Is there something we should know?
It's the shirt. It's the shirt, dude.
Yeah, it is. It's the this year's Hurricane Hunter shirt.
It's not the C-130 mover. It's the shirt.
Yeah. So I mean, like, let's say I'm in a bar and I'm like, hey, I'm a Hurricane Hunter.
But where are we? Where are we?
Dig it or what?
Where are we though?
There is a lot of people that will see the shirts for the squadron and want to come ask questions about things.
I'm not. I don't mean people like. I mean groupies.
I would say,
and I'm like, hey, I'm a Hurricane Hunter. Gonky, what happens at the
he's being modest.
Is that what's happening here? Are we deflecting? I need the answers here.
No, I'm trying to think of a diplomatic way to put it, which is maybe
we don't do that here.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe they don't talk about Fight Club.
The groupies you want aren't the groupies you get.
Say no more. Say no more, fam.
Mover now understands.
Nathan says, Alec again before bed. Just had a cool thought. Mover in the vet. Gonky on the bike. Mark in the plane chasing hurricanes and tornadoes, screaming, "It's the wonder of nature, baby!" with rock music playing. Make AI do that. AI needs to whatever that fever dream is awesome, and AI needs to make that happen.
That's what I love about kids, man. Imagination is like
awesome. IDK James, say it for your VA claim. That's the greatest Gonky. They are undereducate.
Probably forgot the D. Educated. Sure.
Corvette World, Rob, having flashback. I rode the C-17 to Afghanistan. Did they run to your plane? Did they make you
I would say if you rode a C-17 to Afghanistan, you got the Lux ride because the C-130 was a lot longer and less comfortable ride there.
Well, at some point, you fly so long that you're not making up any ground by running. Like, what's 10 minutes? I mean, it's not like a fighter with an alert scramble where I'm only going a short distance and I need to get there fast. Like, if you got a 6 to 9 hour flight and you shaved off 10 minutes, you can probably get a shortcut from ATC and do the same thing.
Well, just cut the corner and make up for the run.
Right. Don't run, walk, taxi your 1 knot or whatever those guys were doing, and then get a shortcut later.
Mover, the heavy weapons school guys right now are writing this down. This is free. This is
General Mover is
This
now
is
in
free
charge
fighter
of the
thinking for the
C-17.
heavies.
A revolver in the back so they can throw missiles.
Stop running and save time elsewhere.
3-knot taxi instead of 1. Here you go, right here. Mark says impressive, but the SWE pilots still taxi. SWA.
Yeah, no joke.
Literally any pilot's taxi faster than that.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
your Cessna back in the day probably taxied faster than that.
Mark's got a point. I mean, first time I saw a C5 flying, it didn't look like it was flying because it's so large.
Why ruin a good joke, though?
I know that's true. It is a good joke, even if it's 10% true.
Who cares? We don't do the truth here. That's not what we're about.
Yeah, that's true.
For
Entertainment.
legal reasons, everything is a joke. Farmer Dave says, "Yo, Mark, PM me on F chat. Kisses, Farmer Dave." What is happening?
Apparently, I have some friends that watch your show.
Dude, that's awesome. Farmer Dave.
What? All right.
Some lonely farmers out there, Mark.
Farmers only.
So Farmer Dave, he I think works for Farmers Insurance.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then
I haven't seen him in probably 15 years.
Insurance, real farmer. I mean,
you guys
it's-
play DCS together or something? Like, what's the connection here?
Car club. Used to
Oh.
go racing around Texas in fast cars.
Hell yeah! See, now we're speaking the same language.
It was more like the Italian Formula One crowd than your NASCAR.
Okay, well, anyway, Gonky, what do you want to talk about next? F-16. I've got the hat thing because we've got a hat connoisseur here. You want to talk about hats?
I think the hat thing. I think Mark could really.
All right.
Shit.
So, as usual, views are our own and do not represent the DoD.
Yes.
Please do not fire us.
We're totally joking.
Everything we say from here on out is probably a joke.
100%.
Probably. So, in the news recently, military.com says 4-star general commander, 4-star commander general commander denies request to wear boonie hats at Nellis Air Force Base amid standards push. And there's a boonie hat in case you didn't know what that was. With an M4 carbine. The necks of airmen at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, will continue to scorch under the blistering summer. I love the way this is written. That's awesome. The request to let them don the military's iconic boonie hat was denied by higher headquarters. Colonel Joshua DeMotz, commander of the 99th Air Base Wing at Nellis, wrote to Air Combat Command Boss General Kenneth Wilsbach last month with a plea for cooler heads to prevail. Could airmen wear the floppy hat instead of ball caps during the hot weather months from April 1st, April Fool's Day, to November 1st? Due to extreme heat at Nellis that tops 120 degrees, it's imperative to adjust aspects of the uniform to ensure appropriate protection is afforded to our airmen performing their duties. Boonie hat will allow the relief of excess body heat and protect for the neck face from intense summer sun. He just gave him a one-word answer that said no. And they didn't say why. It just says local commanders may request exception to policy, and it's within the ACC commander's authority to approve or disapprove. And then Mudhen Memes, friend of the channel actually, made fun of him. And this comes on the heels of uniform inspections on ACC. And they said they had a month to undergo unit level inspections to ensure all Air Force regulations on uniforms, grooming, customs, and courtesies were followed. He also directed wings to check whether troops' personnel records are in compliance with medical and religious exemptions, to see, for instance, whether an airman with a beard possesses a shaving waiver. That applies to 157 people, and that's what Rachel looks like. My first question is, why even ask? Just do it.
Right.
Better to ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that's why we are in the reserves.
That's why.
I hate to break this to you, but ops tested, it doesn't work there either. But go on.
Yeah, it does.
I think it would work.
I don't know.
Look, dude, if you're out on the flight line wrenching on top of a wing or something, I don't care if you're necessary. I mean, dude, keep the sun off you.
Big
Right?
sombreros. Like that should be the answer. Is they get the biggest, goofiest, like trooper hat that they could possibly find and all wear it on the flight line in protest.
Dude, those hats, when I take, my son to the dirt bike track here in Florida, it's crazy hot in the summer and I wear a boonie hat. And when I don't have one of those, I wear a rice paddy hat. I mean, those hats really do work.
My personal preference is for a pith helmet. They suspend above the head. They're cool and comfortable.
Well, it's better than a ball cap. I mean, a ball cap for sure, your ears are getting burnt. The back of your neck is getting burnt 100%, man. Like, I mean, honestly, in that environment, I almost think a boonie type hat is almost like PPE if you're outside. I mean, for any extended period of time.
I just don't understand why it's even a thing. Like the Air Force in general is running a PR war with its people because you have retention issues, you have recruitment issues, you have all these little things that are going back and forth. And why not give somebody, what does it cost? Like without some major explanation, like, hey, you can't wear boonie hats because the Nellis sniper is going to see a boonie hat and snipe you. Okay, well, it's a dangerous thing. Don't wear a boonie hat. But that's not happening here. So why decline it with no further comment and then let this become the thing that it's become when it could have just been an easy win?
Yeah, I mean, I read some of the comments and it's like, the viewpoint is, well, this is an example of how out of touch leadership is. You got General in his nice cozy office who never has to be out in the sun working on airplanes, and you got people or not even working on airplanes, just being outside in the working outside in the sun. It's I agree with you. To me, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I'm really curious if there are some additional factors that have been behind this recent push and on the combat side of things to tighten up. If there was some significant events that have led to this, or if it's just someone in particular feels that there's a need for this. In my mind, the problem that you have is people are going to take care of themselves. You're going to do what's necessary to not get heat stroke, get sunburn. So then you get this kind of almost culture of non-compliance because you're having to specifically violate these kind of rules just to get by and be able to do the job. So then, you start questioning other rules and you get in this standardization of deviance area where it's like, well, we end up having to do what we have to do to not keel over in the sun. And it creates problems where then, leadership is increasingly out of touch potentially with what the certain people have to do to operate.
I think it's goes back to what we said every time. You take care of your people and you remove obstacles. That's what leaders do. That's your whole job, is to take care of people, remove obstacles, let them accomplish the mission. If you are managing by edict, you are failing your people. So if we're going to be in this situation where your people ask you for something, if the answer is no, then you need to have a good reason and you need to be able to explain it. No, well, because I said so is what kids get from their parents. It's not what leaders do.
Dude, it's not like they're asking, hey man, can we wear earrings? Like, I don't know, like out on the flight. It's a it's for protective purposes, like it's a.
Do they not have sunshades?
I don't know, man.
I mean, stop working on airplanes out in the sun.
Yeah.
The heat index is above the certain thing. Doesn't the wet bulb globe temperature dictate that they can't be out there anyway?
I guess not. How would you get they never get anything done, right? Summer in Nellis is.
I don't know.
To me, it's ridiculous. But what do I know? I'm just.
We're in such a place right now where we're in trouble. Like we're in trouble on so many levels, and we need to be putting out the big fires and not worrying about the small fires. Like
let's focus on this hat issue.
Yeah.
We have
it's like your house is on fire, but hey, that grass fire 2 blocks over, let's deal with that. And you're like, dude, send all the fire trucks to my house.
Yeah.
Stop sending stuff that doesn't matter. Now, granted, the argument could be made, it could deal with both things, but when you've got a force that has slowly been demoralized after 20 years of combat operations that ended in whatever that was,
Yeah.
you know,
Not good.
people look to their leadership and they go, what are we doing? What is my vision? And the answer is, you need to make sure your uniform is squared away, your beard waiver is in accordance with beard waiver standards, and oh, by the way, that hat you wanted is a no. What message does that send?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the standards, but like when you're asking for something that is literally for safety, and like it's like Mark said, dude, like they're just trying to do the job better in the environment that they're in. You know, it's not. I mean, I don't know, man. It's like it's almost required. You know, a hat's almost a requirement if you're going to be out, in my opinion, if you're going to be out in the blazing sun all day, and it might as well be the one that protects you the most. They have one in the uniform inventory that can be worn, but you know.
Well, I mean, let's play devil's advocate here. Let's say this is a thinking man's response. You have sunshades. You're not supposed to wear hats on the flight line anyway. So where does this apply? Because where are they wrenching on jets, right? If they're doing big maintenance, it's in the hangar because it's a fighter base. So where does this even apply?
Did that specifically say it was for maintenance folks, or could it be the security forces that are out patrolling? And I'm not that familiar with the Nellis infrastructure, but they have a lot of ranges that are out there, and I'm guessing the security forces probably securing the perimeter of those ranges, keeping people off those. A lot of open ground, maybe not even in the vicinity of aircraft shelters that could be out there patrolling.
Yeah, it doesn't say. It just says for the airmen of the 99th Air Base Wing. So it's the entire air base. You're right. It could be security forces and stuff like that. So
we'll just save that response for your VA claim when you get out, when they're cutting skin cancer off your ears.
Out from a heat stroke, it's not going to be a VA claim. It's just going to be.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would be nice. I like to see both sides of the argument, and we're not seeing the other side of this. So
that's true.
There may be a compelling reason to do that, but I don't know. Let's see, from the people in the back over here. Aaron says avionics didn't even run to the flight line. If we ran out of vans, we'd go back to horse. That's from the C-17 video.
Yeah, that's awesome.
AMT says get a bad sunburn and ask Med for a letter for hat as PPE.
Well, yeah, I guess you
it's a cover. Gotta call it. Mark says 4-star commanders say yes to mariachi sombreros. Dude, those big gardening hats.
Yeah,
could just be a. And then random task just gives you $2 in Canadian. Oh, he also says, hey, Mark, what is the craziest flight story you have, or what is your hairiest hop? Sorry, this is already covered. We didn't really ask it about the hurricane hunters. We talked about the TCAS thing, but.
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a number of different kind of hairy circumstances. Last year, flying Tropical Storm Franklin was probably one of the craziest kind of turbulent areas where I've been in so far. And in that case, the radar that we have is tweaked to kind of offer some better presentation deeper into the thick weather, but it isn't. It can't see everything, and sometimes you just have a signal that's completely attenuated. So you're looking for a way through or way out of a storm, and you have what looks like a good way, but then turns out to not be. And as you get into it, it just gets thicker and thicker. So we got into this area where we were for about half an hour. Bouncing up and down a few hundred feet, and with continuous lightning, continuous hail or heavy rain, just flashing pretty much continuously, like for half an hour. And it was the plane really was getting beat on by the rain and hail. You saw a lot of static discharge on the windscreen. It's pretty exciting, intense time. And those tropical storms are oftentimes the ones where we see that really worse turbulence and precipitation like that. Sometimes the bigger storms, the Cat 4s, Cat 5s, they have very strong winds, but at the altitude we're flying at, they've got their act together a little bit with some of that convective activity. It's wrapped around the center, and it's a little less something. That's probably one of the crazier things I've been through. I think it was 2018 when we were flying Hurricane Irma. We got into the eye. I think it was a Cat 5 as it was traveling over Barbuda, and there were a couple of very distinct tornado type activities that were embedded in the eye of the storm that you really can't sometimes see it on radar until you break through or in the eye. And so that was some thrilling times as you're flying around in this eye that's about 10 miles in diameter, and you see these tornadoes and on radar, and knowing that you have to avoid those and looking at all the other potential threats and find your way out. There's been a lot of kind of interesting situations like that. I've been doing this for coming up on 9 years now. I've been through the eye of a hurricane 148 times.
Wow.
And there's some folks in the squadron that have been, I think the all-time record is 340 hurricane penetrations. That kind of generation is kind of retired out now, and so we don't have as many folks with those really high numbers. But I try and fly as many storms as I can, and so working on getting that count up.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. Moving on we're skip to the last topic here, just based on time. And it's really a short one because it's a,
it gets asked.
Every like Twitter post, everybody wants to know, Mover, or maybe Gonky too. Are you going to go fly F-16s for Ukraine? Because they got their first Vipers in July. They're going to have 20 pilots. But then Lindsey Graham, senator from the great state of South Carolina, said, if you're a retired F-16 pilot, you're looking to fight for freedom, they will hire you here, he told reporters. They're going to look throughout NATO nations for willing fighter pilots who retired to come help them until they can get their pilot trains. We're going to get these jets in the air sooner rather than later. And that's pretty much the whole thing. And everybody keeps asking me, are you going to sign up? Number one, I'm not retired. So there's that part. Number two, I think it's a bad idea. And I'm not going to do it. For more than just it's a bad idea. I swore an oath to my country, to fight for my country. And I have no ties to this conflict right now. There's nothing for me in Ukraine. And I think as far as a bad idea, the reason I say it's a bad idea is because you're going to a foreign country in a jet of, unknown capabilities. Yeah. It's unknown capabilities, unknown maintenance, unknown everything. You don't have the infrastructure that you have when you go fight. For example, I go deploy to Iraq again. I know that I've got my maintainers, my operation support, my aircrew flight equipment, my CSAR support, which is a huge thing in an active shooting war, command and control environment. Like, I know I have that support. I don't know what you have there. And unlike Iraq, Afghanistan, where if you get captured, they're just going to lop your head off. You get captured in Russia, you are not subject to the same rules because now you're a independent contractor mercenary, and they will find out everything you know about every weapon system, every classified program, everything that you've ever been exposed to in the United States military will now be property of the Russian government. That is a security risk on top of a personal risk. And when the United States is not formally part of this, it doesn't make sense as somebody who loves their own country to go partake. That's just me. Other people may have different opinions. I don't think it's something I would do because I have no allegiance to Ukraine.
Yeah, dude, I think you nailed it. I mean, we talk about it offline. I keep praying that peace breaks out over there. I mean, anybody that's ever been to war knows that it sucks, and that you know, peace is better. I just everything you said is 100% valid, man. I mean, you just
Would it
don't
change
know
things if you could wear a boonie hat, though?
on the flight line or in the.
Well, you need the boonie hat when you're evading. I had a boonie hat in the Air Force. Why is this like I have one with my rank on it? I have one in the closet there for my desert boonie hat.
Yeah, don't wear it anymore, mover.
But and that's the other piece to this too, because I just did the video, the Su-34 versus Ukraine thing, and Gonky, you've seen this on it. Everybody's like, pick a side. It's always pick a side.
No.
What drives me nuts is like, I guarantee you, if you publish this, people are going to call me a traitor. You know, because I've seen that, and it's like, to whom am I a traitor? Because I am loyal to my country. My country is not actively fighting. I have not done anything against my country. I have no allegiance to any other country.
Yeah, it's support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, right?
Against all enemies, foreign and
domestic. That's right. So it doesn't say anything about, you know, if you want to, you know, if you have, you know, if you have the drive or the reason to do it, more power to you. But
dude, I love the Viper. I would love to go fly the Viper. I'd love to go fly the Viper in combat again, but I would love to do it on terms of, you know, fighting with the flag on my shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be cool if you could just be like, hey, let's just have a training day. We won't really shoot at one another and just go out and see if you could, you know, get in a BFM engagement with a Russian. That would be fun. But yeah, dude, you know, I mean, I actually have through marriage, I have family in the Ukraine, and I'm just very sad about that whole situation over there. I mean, it's there's a lot of people that are dying that don't need to die, in my
100%.
opinion, on both sides, man. I mean, dude, if you just listen to that Su-34 getting shot at by those Patriots, like the thing that stood out to me the most is I'm listening to these Russian fighter pilots fighting for their lives, and it just reminded me of like the same calm that we were taught, and like, you know, a little different dialect and whatnot. I mean, it was translated, but like, these are real people. I mean, you know, and you know, my experience in combat is like, you know, politics aside, man, I'm just trying to help the guy on the ground or the guy next to me, or you know what I'm saying?
Mental health minute. That's 100%. That's a good segue for the mental health minute that we're going to talk about in a minute. But you know, if you're going to have that flag draped over your coffin because you gave it all in the battlefield, you know, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not a sport. It's not a sport. It's not reliving your glory days. You know, I mean, I'm not like you, Gonky. You know, I mean, for you, you'd be leaving your family. That's a big deal. It's a big ask for when Uncle Sam asks you.
Right.
You know, it's an even bigger ask when it's just for money or whatever. But I mean, I'd be leaving Luna. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
You know, I mean,
right.
I get back. Who knows? So
it can't just be the Gonky show. That would be terrible.
It can't be the Gonky show. Mark, what do you think, man? We haven't gotten you to weigh in on this.
I got a couple of things I'm thinking of. The first is, you know, we've all done the paperwork for your, you know, background checks, security clearances. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's like, hey, name 3 people that can give you your address for every place you spent more than 5 minutes. And it's like, yeah, this could be really tough. Like, yeah, that 6-month period, you know, when you're off flying fighter jets in Ukraine, that just seems like it'd be really tough to get good answers to those questions. It seems like it kind of then that is the termination of any kind of further clearances you may have.
Right.
The other thing I'm kind of thinking of is, yeah, we're looking at it from this perspective, and I don't disagree with your points, but I'm also reminded of I think it was the Tom Sizemore character in the movie Heat, and they're talking about taking down that one last score, and he says, for me, the action is the juice, and we. The three of us, we have things that we're here for, but there are some folks that do not have those ties and maybe have a wildly different perspective on life, for whom the action is the juice. It may not be where you and I come from, and it represents a wholly different perspective on life, but there's definitely, I can see people that it would appeal to.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not for me. It's not for me. I haven't lost anything in Ukraine. The aliens start attacking Ukraine. It's a different story. What do you think, Lou?
CD Luna knows you're getting, number one, she thinks you're getting worked up, or hey, definitely don't leave.
She's like, you're not going to Ukraine.
Definitely don't
What are you doing?
leave.
We forgot to brief you, Mark, that the Luna Camp. Well, you watch the show or you listen.
Yeah.
This is the Luna Camp. She shows up at 9:00. All right, which means it's this. She's like the proverbial hook, to wrangle this in. Let's talk mental health, which is perfect. This is a good segue. The last two articles are actually a great segue for this. You are just a cog in the wheel. So I thought of this the other day. I was at a sim for corporate flying, airline flying, and you kind of look at this big machine, this big operation. It applies to government. It applies to everything you do. And you realize that the machine churns on with or without you. You are a replaceable asset. And I think a lot of people struggle with this idea because in their mind, in everybody's mind, we all want to do the best job that we can. We all want to be as important as we are, but sometimes we sacrifice our own mental health and our own friendships and our own families because we kind of get lost in that big groupthink organization, and we forget that you're replaceable at every level. Unless you're, even a small business, you may be the thing that's keeping it together, but in big organizations, you are a replaceable cost unit, an item. And like Gonky was talking about in the last segment, in situations like that, you have to fight for the person next to you. You have to fight for your friends and family, and you have to pare down your why to what is best for your small group. And at the end, what is best for yourself. If you do that, it makes life a little bit more fulfilling, and you have a little bit more perspective, because there's going to be situations, there's going to be times when you're going to be sitting there going, why am I even doing this? What am I doing this for? And because the moment that bubble is going to burst is when you realize that, the 4-star doesn't care about you and your boonie hat. The airline CEO doesn't care about you. All he cares about is his profit sharing check. They don't care if your flight's on time. They don't care about that stuff because they're stuck in their world and they don't even know who you are. You're just a unit number. But to keep your sanity, you have to have that separation of, I'm going to worry about myself, which means I need to know when to walk away. I need to know when I'm going to set up my own boundaries and not try to kill myself over this job. I'm not going to run myself ragged and be miserable and sacrifice my family and friends and social life and all that stuff, within reason, of course. But you have to set up these boundaries, because if you don't, the machine will eat you. And that's a very tough realization. So with that, always use a wingman. Talk to your friends, talk to your buddies, have a buddy that, kind of pushes you to say, hey, how do I make life a little bit better? And to help you realize that you're not as important in the machine as you think you are. And then help you find an exit strategy like Gonky. But 988, 911, if you feel like you're going to hurt yourself, Reverend, talk to the chaplain, talk to your preachers, talk to your clergy. Gonky, I'm going to hand this off to you.
Well, as usual, you've covered the highlights, man. It's the whole, sometimes, I mean, it's a dent in your ego, right? Whenever you finally realize you're a cog in the wheel. For me, it was like, we're doing OEF, OIF, and it's literally like, one carrier out, one in, right? I mean, it's literally like pull that gear, put that back in, and like the show just keeps going, and we do our thing, and like at the peak of operations, like we got this thing, down. Cyclic ops is going good, combat ops is good. I'm comfortable with and you read all you have to do is read the rules of engagement, and you're like, dude, this is a giant machine. I am literally a pawn in this little game here. And for me, when I first kind of realized that, it kind of sucked a little bit, because it kind of took away from what I thought that I was doing, or we were doing, at least there in the Middle East. But yeah, like I talked about in the earlier segment, man, at the end of the day, it's like you just have to like refocus. It's like, okay, listen, I'm a cog in the wheel, but how can I make a difference here? Well, I can make a difference here by being the best flight lead I can be, the best wingman I can be, providing the best close air support I can do, and basically do my job to the best of my ability, and and then go home, hand it off with pride to the next air CAG, or the carrier that rolls in there. And it can be stressful too, but I mean, you covered the ways you deal with that. And I think the military does a good job with camaraderie, right? Like, generally speaking, a squadron's pretty tight.
That's what people miss.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the people is what has made my military experience awesome. But like, the camaraderie keeps you tight like a family. You're away from home and all your distractions. At least in the Navy, right? You're on a ship. You're kind of there with your 5,000 best friends, and then you spend most of your time with your squadron mates. So, we all watch one another, and you can't really hide anything, right? So, which is good and bad. So, surrounding yourself with the right people is important. And like you said, Mover, if you need help, definitely ask for it. So, Mark, what do you think, man? Cog in the wheel.
Yeah, well, kind of what you're saying about being on a ship. And you guys haven't even had the joy of, waking up at 2 a.m. and getting on a plane with 5 of your best friends to go on a 12-hour flight. And, there's, in that there's probably a cumulative 30 minutes of talking to ATC or somebody, but the rest of it is, talking with the rest of the crew. And, you get really to know people on that. And yes, from an institutional perspective, you are just a cog in a wheel. But from a personal perspective, you can be a lot more by just being a good friend to the people that you're around. And I mean, I know that you guys push the kind of formal channels for support on things, but I think in a lot of ways, the most important thing you can be is just someone who can listen to those people that you're around on a day-to-day basis, and, actually get to know and understand what's going on in their lives. So, you can be a good friend and a good support. And if you have that kind of tight-knit community, then those outside support mechanisms maybe are not as necessary.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Douglas?
I'm still composing my reply. Get back to me in a minute.
Okay.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
What I would say
Mark.
is, I went through a very difficult time with a divorce 5 years ago, and it was really the people in my squadron that kept me going. The Air Force, some of the leadership was helpful and sympathetic, but it was really, my bros in the squadron that were there to help me when I needed that help. And, didn't necessarily want to be at work, but at the same time, getting on a plane and flying and, knowing that those folks had my back and were there to help me out, that made all the difference. And so in the same way, I can try and be that to someone else going through something now. And it's just watching each other's back. And I think kind of embracing that you are, from the institutional's perspective, just a cog in a wheel. So we, between ourselves and the squadron or our crew, we're all we really got to help each other out.
I wasn't really still composing my reply. I was trying to come up with a new line about being the last one and not having anything to say. There's a lot of pressure, like in various institutions, whether you just want to look at society or it sounds like the military. And I know in the different jobs I've been in, there's a lot of pressure usually from the top to make you feel like, hey, you really matter and you've got to be here and you've got to do your thing. And I think it's okay. I mean, you guys talked about it. It's okay to be excited about the mission and to be excited about being part of a military or a society or whatever whatever level you want to look at it from. But you really got to keep perspective on who you really matter to and who matters to you when it comes right down to it, which is really what I'm hearing you guys say. And as I've aged and grown into having a family, that's something that has really changed my perspective. Is I know who I matter to and make my decisions a lot more based on that. And it doesn't always mean putting work first. It doesn't always mean putting the interests of people who really I don't even know that well in some cases ahead of my family and my friends.
Awesome. Any reattacks?
I think we nailed it as usual.
Yeah, well. All right. Get to these comments and then we'll wrap it up because I know it's bedtime. Ask me how I know. Stefan says, ever call it a hurricane?
No. We have a number of unofficial things, but no. Haven't heard that one.
You remember that hurricane, like for the old people?
Yes. If I could find one, I would buy one just to have to like walk around the squadron. There's probably, actually, maybe we know somebody that could have some knee issues that it would be beneficial for. Maybe affix a patch to the front of it. Just brainstorming here. They say no idea is a bad one.
Great.
Is it rhyme with
maybe?
Whatever that is, it doesn't look like it needs a hurricane.
Crazy Pete says, I like flying with navs. We could tell pilot jokes all day and never have to stop to explain them. Kate says, good for you, Mover. I applaud your perspective. I don't know if it's all that special. It's just like
there's a lot of people that feel that way. Mover.
Most of these people are people that have never, like Gonky talked about, they've never set foot outside of their comfort zone. They have never,
dude, it's a different world. You go strap on an airplane and go kill people. It's not, at the end of the day, it's not, we train to do it, but
it's not a video game. It's not
exactly.
It's not like raging.
Yes.
The romanticized image of war is for movies.
Yeah.
You will not respawn in a safe zone.
Well, and it's not
right.
It's not just the respawn. I mean, dude, if America were calling and this were like a, support and defend the Constitution of the United States kind of situation, hell yeah. Let's go. Get some. But
yeah, dude, I have kids now and I've lived all over the world and I've traveled and I just realized that people are different around the world, and like almost every place I go, most people just want to be left alone, have their families and their lives, and just try to be happy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I'm in my first Rambo story arc. That's where I'm at in my life right now. I just want to be left alone in the woods.
Yeah.
The government won't let me.
Or is it Commando?
No, it's Rambo. Rambo just wants to be left alone.
So did Commando. All right, sorry.
All right, well, fine. You can have both. Aaron says we will have 057 level maintainers. He's talking about the boonie hat thing. I agree. Bob says, Trader, that's ridiculous. When I saw this and thought about you guys, I guess this is what you would say. It makes total sense.
Thanks, Bob.
Bob also says, Cog in the giant machine. I sure know about that. Several friends laid off today. Control what I can, but it still hurts. I did read that about GM. Was one of the companies laying people off. The economy is not great, and things are not trending in the right direction. Mr. X says, on the upside, I find the cog in the machine realization to be freeing in some ways and doesn't have to be 100% negative. And
Valid.
not just valid, but somebody in the comments, I was just reading, scrolling through, but somebody said, how much would you sell Luna for? And then somebody in the comments said, well, you know, he's not going to sell Luna. And then he's like, 20 million. You know, every man has a price. Some people have prices.
That's right.
You're talking to the guy that no. No. Like, dude, no. There's a lot more to life than money.
I got a couple of kids though that I'd be willing.
Oh, kids are different. Dogs are way better than kids.
20 mil.
John says, work for those who work with you, and for you, their success is what matters. The wheel will turn, but helping others gain a better quality of life is mission and our goal as leaders.
Nice.
And, you know, John, from a law enforcement perspective, because I like to throw that out there too, our very own people in our own agency have always asked, what's your why? You know, why do this? I'm a reserve deputy. I do it for free. And they ask me why. And there's a video, hopefully, that'll be coming out from the sheriff's office soon of something that happened with Luna in a real world situation. And my why is, yes, I'm a cog in the machine. And, you know, there's issues, you know, people have issues with law enforcement globally. People have issues with this and that, and it's political and all that stuff. But my why is because it gives me small opportunities to see somebody on their worst day and try to make it a little better, to try to take something that seems, you know, small and turn it into something that actually maybe even, you know, saved them or helped them. And maybe it's just one person, but that's the change you can affect. You know, you don't have to change the whole system. You can just be the change you want to see. So, Skid says Mongo, but Bitpawn and big game of life. And then Stefan says, I think Mike Tyson calls it the hurricane. All right. And that is it. We are done.
Mark, thanks, man. Appreciate
Mark,
you.
thank you for your service.
Yeah, dude.
Well, I got a problem now. Is I won't have a Mover and Gonky show to listen to on the drive to work tomorrow.
I'll tell you.
I've already heard it.
No, I'll tell you from experience, dude. It's always better when you listen to it after. Like you're now going to get to listen to it and debrief yourself.
Correct. For us.
It's even going to be better now. When you go, I've listened to the show when I drove back from Texas. I listened to like 3 episodes. And I was like, damn. I listened to the one where Gonky trash talked me to Wombat in front of everybody. And then said, I hope Mover doesn't listen. I did. And then I listened to the episode after that. So, I mean, I think you'll like it. I think you'll. Plus, I'm sure there may be 1 or 2 other people that listen that may want to talk to you about it too.
Oh, yeah. I have no doubt that I'm already getting some texts from people like, hey, is this still your number?
Hopefully not Jag or OSI.
Yeah.
Or, you know, any of the ones with birds on their shoulders.
Yeah.
I've already had to talk with the people with birds on their shoulders this week, so I'm not too worried.
Calls from DC area. It's like, ooh.
Yeah. And then, Eddie says, watched on 1.5, just caught up. Thanks for the great show. That's dedication.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Elias says, Pawn, Gonky's definitely a rook. You handlebar mustache and a herc wielding stallion you.
Dude.
And then Mike Tyson says, I just want to be left alone.
Or Mover.
And that's it. That's our show. Thanks, Mark. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks everybody
Good
for
job.
joining us. Mark, thank you. Doug, thank you so much, man, as usual.
We doing this next week,
Yes,
Gonky?
sir.
Well,
We've got a Raptor Eurofighter Typhoon pilot on.
yes.
Wow.
So that'll be fun. All right.
Good times.
Hey, Mark, stick around. We do the debrief after. I always forget to
Yeah.
tell people that.
Yes.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. See you
See
guys.
you next week.